Good morning. We have reached, well, good afternoon actually, because I'm filming this in the morning, but you'll be seeing this in the afternoon. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new, thank you so much for stopping by, and I'd love it if you'd stay a while, click that subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and join my family of keepers. Can you believe we have reached February? This is week 5. I can't believe this has really gone a lot faster than I thought. We're gonna get right into this, and I will say before we start, we're starting on a Monday because I totally left out Sunday. We snacked pretty much all day, didn't really fix any meals, so we're just gonna kind of cross Sunday off our weekly menu list and just start with Monday. So let's start.
For dinner tonight, Joe is cooking a pork roast. He has browned this on all sides in a little bit of olive oil and real butter. He has added rosemary, thyme, onion and garlic powder, salt, pepper, and he's just seasoned it. He doesn't give an amount. He just adds it to taste. I guess it's whatever you want to add to it. And if there's other spices or herbs that you want to add to this, you could. Browning this on all sides just seals in the flavor and all the juices, and it tastes really good that way. He's cooking this in the conventional oven today, and the cook stove is down today for cleaning. So this will go in the conventional oven, and we're probably going to cook it about 275. It's about noontime right now. We're not going to eat before 6, so low and slow is key to making this a very delicious roast.
We have carrots to add to this roast. These are from our storage refrigerator. We still have these from our garden, and they are just as firm as can be. I can't bend it. It's still just as crispy and crunchy. We pulled these from the garden in October. And onions from our garden as well. And potatoes. These potatoes are from a local farm. We didn't grow potatoes this year. So these will all go in with the roast when he puts it in the oven, and everything is just going to be cooked low and slow. We also have some garlic from our garden. If you don't grow your own garlic, you should really try. It's easy to do. It's kind of a fix it and forget it. We like to pan fry all sides of the pork roast, like I said. He has done that. We also like to pan fry the onions and the carrots and the potatoes because you're kind of browning them, and the flavor is so much better because they just have soaked all of that up and browned and crisped the edges. And it tastes so good. It just kind of adds a little bit more than just throwing them in there and cooking them. I want to show some of the browned bits. You can see where it's started to brown up a little bit. Some of these potatoes and the onions and the carrots. This is what's going to make it taste so good. We're also going to add a little envelope of onion soup mix with just a little bit of water. We don't want to add too much liquid to this. So just going to let that sit and rehydrate those onions just a little bit. And then we're going to pour that over the roast before sticking it in the oven. I also made some ploy to go along with our dinner. These are so quick and easy to make, and they're super delicious.
Here it is. That roast just fell apart. It really tasted so good. I just wanted to hop on here really quick. I was just putting leftovers away for supper, and I want to show you what I'm doing with the rest of the drippings in the pan. The drippings that I am not putting in with the leftovers still have a little bit left. I want to show you what I do with that. What I'm going to do is I have just a regular plastic ice cube tray here. I'm going to pour the drippings into this ice cube tray. I'm going to save this to add to rice or any other dishes that may need a little bit of flavoring. So when you have leftover drippings, don't throw them out. They're still useful. And if you don't want to use them this way, you can always put them in silicone molds and feed them to your chickens. They'll like them. Just freeze them and pop them out, and it's a nice little treat for your chickens. All right, it is Tuesday, February 1st, and for dinner tonight we have some breasts and we have some thighs. We're doing both. Then we're going to salt and pepper them. We'll just trim the fat off of these. Or they are thighs. They are a fattier piece of, cut of chicken. But they are very tasty. They have a lot of flavor because of all of that fat.
And okay. We get butter.
We've got about 3 tablespoons of butter in a hot cast iron pan. And we've got some pesto, and he's just going to spread the pesto all over the chicken, each piece of chicken, both sides, and get it coated nicely, and just kind of massage that into the chicken. We're going to do this to each piece we have, both thighs and breasts. This will be really, really good. I love pesto. Joe loves pesto. We both love garlic really well. And I love chicken. So this is going to be really good. Along with the pesto chicken, we're going to have some more farro. This is butternut squash and kale. It's like a risotto, sort of, kind of. The pesto chicken is cooking out really well. Baked potato is in the cook stove. All right, this is going to go into the cook stove. It's going to finish off in there. All right, for a vegetable, we are having green beans. That's what won the vote. And so we've got this on the cook stove. We've got the chicken in the cook stove, and we also have the farro cooking. Joe just put that in, so that's boiling nicely. Over here, our 8-year-old granddaughter is learning her sewing stitches by doing some stitchery. So she has a little candle mat that she's making. She's stitching on here. It's great practice to learn how to do this, and she's learning some stitching and skills. This will help her to be able to hand sew something if she needs to. Doing a great job. It's looking good. You also learn the skill of threading a needle, don't you? Is that the best part? Good job. We're going to add some cheese to this, a little bit of Swiss cheese. I think this is going to be good, and we'll put it back in the oven and let that melt. We're also going to add, Riley doesn't like Swiss, so we're going to add mozzarella on hers. The green beans are finished, and the farro is finished as well. So I've got the farro sitting up here where it stays warm, but it is not on direct heat. So Joe's going to finish up with the chicken and then put it in the oven to melt, and we'll be ready to plate everything. And here we have Riley's plate. She is having green beans and the pesto chicken, a stuffed baked potato, and some farro. And Joe is having the same thing. They've got cheese, bacon bits, sour cream, and chives, I believe, on their potatoes. And I'm not a big potato fan, so I just have farro, green beans, and pesto chicken. It's Wednesday, February 2nd, and you can see I started making, it's early in the morning, I started making our supper and realized that I haven't recorded any of this, so I wanted to bring you in really quick. I made a bread dough, or not a bread dough, pie crust. It's early. I made some pie crust, and I'm just rolling it out. I've got the bottom crust made already, you can see here. I'm rolling it out and putting it into some little dishes. Let me set this down and I'll show you what I'm doing here. You can see these are some cute little dishes. I love them. Got the little cover. I've said it before on my channel. I love little dishes like this because they just personalize a meal, and I don't know, they're just adorable. I love them. So I have two of these, one for my husband and one for myself, and I've got the top crust for each one, and I am going to put some, I've got some chicken stew left over, and I want to thicken it up and make a chicken pot pie, and I'm going to put it in here and just put the top crust on it. So that's what I have here, and I have the crust made for both of those, the top and the bottom, but this is what I have for leftover crust. And so I want to show you what I do with my leftover crust, because I don't throw it away, I don't feed it to the chickens, I don't throw it in my freezer, my refrigerator. I use it, and it doesn't matter how small it is because it's the two of us, and this will work great. Let me show you. So I went ahead and put an apron on because I feel like I'm getting flour all over my shirt. Okay, so I don't know, can you see this very well? Let me pull you down a little bit. I've got some softened butter. This is a salted butter. You can use unsalted or salted. I don't know. I don't find a taste difference, really. I guess in a recipe it'll make a difference as to whether or not it has salt in it, but for this it does not. So I'm going to take a chunk of butter, which is going to vary depending on how much dough you have. And like I said, this is very soft butter. You can see by the way it's spreading so nicely. I'm going to put this all over this really good, and it's okay if it's a little thick because that just makes things even better. All right, I've got that all spread. Now I've got some brown sugar, and I'm going to spread a little bit of brown sugar all over this. Maybe more than a little. I'll just be generous here. My husband likes it sweet, so I've made these before several times. You've probably seen me make them, but this is what is going to be dessert tonight after our dinner. Okay, I'm not going all the way to the edges. You can see I'm leaving a little bit just for rolling sake so it doesn't go all over the place. Okay, put that in there. Now I'm going to add some cinnamon. Sprinkle a little bit of cinnamon. You can, take a bowl and put your cinnamon and your brown sugar in a bowl and mix it together too. I've done that. I actually prefer doing it that way, but you don't have to. I'm going to just kind of mix it this way a little bit, I think. So mix it in really good so it's not all just cinnamon all in one spot. Just gonna, okay. Get this all on here really well. Now at this point, which I think I'm going to do, you can add
pecans, you can add walnuts, you can add pumpkin seeds, you can add craisins, raisins, golden raisins, chopped dates, whatever you can think of that you want to add in here, you can do that at this point. I think I'm going to add nuts. This is what I have in my freezer, so this is what I'm going to add. I actually prefer pecans, but we don't have pecans, so we're going to make do. I get these at Walmart. Not horrible price. I mean, I've seen a lot worse. If I can get them at the Amish store, I'll get them there because I feel like I get a better deal. Now these are whole, and I really want to kind of break them up. And I do have a nut chopper, but I'm not going to take the time to use it right now. Not just for this little bit here. This is just something you want to do that's quick, easy, and you know, it's using up. It's being smart because you're using up leftover pie crust and you're not throwing it out. I mean, this is too small for anything really, unless you wanted to make a really small galette. You could do that. But you know, this is I could make a third pot pie and just have, you know, the bottom crust or just the top crust. But this is going to taste really, really good after dinner, so it'd be a nice little dessert, and I think my husband will appreciate this more than anything that I can do with this leftover crust. This is something that I've been doing since I was a little girl. My mother used to do this with us when we were little. I don't know, her mom did this with them when they were little, and it's called gramas. In French, I don't know if that interprets into English, but that's what my mom always called it. So that's what I grew up knowing it as. Let's see, I'm going to fold in. You can see I'm folding in the edges just a little bit, just so that stuff doesn't leak out. And just rolling this over, and I'm going to pinch this really well so that I can close up that seam. Okay, and to cut this, you can see I have a little leakage here, but that's okay, it's fine. To cut this, I'm going to use a little knife and cut these into, I don't know, 1.5 inch pieces. And look, I've got 5 little bite-sized desserts. Look at that. That's 3 for me and 2 for him. This is perfect. All right, I'm going to get a little tray to put these on, and I'm going to brush them with some egg wash. My filling is falling out here. I'm going to brush them with some egg wash and bake them in the cook stove until they're nice and golden. All right. I decided on using this little cast iron pot. This little pan, I love it. This is just like perfect. Now I'm going to take my little pie crusts and I'm going to put them in here. Perfect. Perfect. Maybe move this a little bit this way. Maybe move this a little bit this way. Arrange it this way. There we go. That's good. Now I'm going to stuff this in here because we want all the goodness that we can get. I don't know why they're falling out this morning. I didn't really roll these as tight as I should have. Okay. Now we're going to take some egg wash. This is just so that they get a nice golden color. You can skip this step if you want to. If you don't have any eggs, that's fine. Or if you have milk, you can always use milk. My mom used milk a lot. She mostly used it for savory pie crust, like on a pot pie or something, but it'll work in a pinch on something like this. Okay. Now, just for a little added beauty, I am going to add some turbinado sugar, because I like how it just kind of has that little glisten on the top. I like that. And the little crunch too when you're biting into it. I mean, you eat with your eyes first, and this just looks so good. Presentation, blah, tongue twister. Presentation, you know, that's a lot, especially to my husband. He likes a dish that looks really like somebody put a lot of love and time into it. He likes that. He appreciates that. So, there we go. That sugar on there, and now brush off the bottom. We're going to get this in the cook stove. Okay, I'm going to set that down here. I'm going to open up the cook stove, and we're going to put this in. All right, our cubes have frozen solid, so what I'm going to do is pop them out and put them into a freezer safe bag. It's a freezer Ziploc, and I did label it, and all I did was put pork roast drippings and put the date. These are so difficult to come out when I take these out. I do like the silicone ones a lot better. They release a lot better than these ones. I'm putting them into the bag, and I'm throwing them back in the freezer so that I can use these anytime I need a little seasoning for like rice, you know, any type of rice dish or pasta or soups or anything like that. I have some extra flavoring. I got them all out. It was a little bit of a challenge, but they're all out. I am definitely investing in some silicone ones. But this is all the cubes, so I'm just going to keep adding to it. If I have another pork roast, I can put some more of the drippings in there and add to the pork bag. So a great money-saving tip, and this is going to taste so delicious in anything that I put it in. Okay, breakfast this morning is waffles, and I just mixed up the waffle batter here, and instead of adding honey to sweeten this, I added maple syrup because I wanted a little bit of a maple flavor. I'm adding some apples instead of blueberries, and what I did was I added a little bit of cinnamon, nutmeg, and some maple sugar to the apples. Just a chopped up apple. I think it's a gala apple. And don't get rid of those peels and that core, because you can throw that in the freezer and use it to make apple cider later. I have my waffle iron ready, and I've got it all coated in some olive oil. I'm going to add my apples to my mix. Stir that around. You can add other sugar if you don't want to do the maple sugar. If you don't have the maple sugar, that's fine. You can add brown sugar, you can add white sugar, whatever kind of sugar you want, or you could even omit the sugar because this is probably sweet enough without it. Okay, let's try this. All right, this looks good. There we go. All right, breakfast is done. We have waffles and bacon and some homemade cranberry applesauce. And he has coffee and I have tea. Okay, so I have my leftover soup, chicken stew that we had. I believe it was one of last week's meal. I'm going to set this up here. This makes a handy little shelf here. Let me show you what we got here. You can see that's boiling quite a bit. I might need to get a hot pad. Okay, I'm gonna put this, what is this? Okay, this is boiling quite a bit. This is the stew that my husband made. It just has some dehydrated zucchini. It has fresh carrots from the garden, sweet potatoes, onions, garlic, regular potatoes. We made it last week, so you can always look that recipe up. Now, in this jar, I just have some arrowroot powder, and I don't like to dilute my stuff too much with something that's not going to give it flavor. So I usually take my arrowroot powder and I mix it with different seasonings: garlic powder, onion powder, salt, pepper, whatever season you want to put it in there. And then instead of mixing it with water, I mix it with, I gotta turn this stove down. I mix it with a little bit of chicken broth. And I'm going to pour all of that in there because I want to thicken this right up so we can do a chicken pot pie. I'm going to stir that all in there. Now you always want your liquid in the soup pot to be at a boil, and when you're mixing up your thickener, you want that to be cold so that it'll cream up really well when you shake it, mix it up. You don't end up with clumps. All right, you can see that this is thickening up a lot more. Let me see, I'll get you in here a little bit better. It's already starting to thicken up. And it'll thicken as it cools as well. It's already not as runny. So we're gonna let this set a little bit. I'm gonna let it cool down because it is, like I said, it's gonna thicken as it cools. And I don't want it piping hot when I put it into the pie crust. It's the pie crust is not cooked, and if I put it in there right away with it not cooked, it's gonna make it kind of gummy on there, and with it this hot. So I like to cool this down before I pour it in there, and that way I don't end up with a soggy crust on the bottom. This has been sitting in the refrigerator, and you can see how thick it is. It thickened up quite a bit. So I'm going to put this into each one of these little containers. Fill them right up. This smells so good. Joe, do you want to come over and smell this? It really smells good. Can you smell that? It's gonna be delicious. When you can smell it before it's even heated up, that's a good sign. All right. I'm trying not to overflow these, but I want to make sure I use up all of the leftover soup in here as well. Just a little bit more. All that out of there. Okay. Now we're going to put the top on. Now, I like to fold over so that everything is underneath. And that way I don't have any issues with leaking. Now you can get as fancy as you like with this, and I'm going to show you how fancy I'm going to get here in a minute. Oh, it's just going to be filled with deliciousness. Okay, so what I'm going to do with my crust, I'm going to get super fancy here. Let's see if I can get you guys in. Look at this. I mean, this is incredibly fancy, right? Actually, there's a method to my madness. I'm just making sure that that crust is super sealed. That's why I chose to do it this way. You can do it any way you like. Look at how fat and full these are. I am going to put a little slice here in the top of the
pie just to let it breathe. I have some pie birds, but this pie is just not quite big enough for a pie bird. Okay, so I'm gonna put these on a tray. I'm gonna line the tray with parchment just in case anything does spill over. It's gonna be caught on the parchment and not on the tray itself. Do you want yours brushed with egg? You do? Okay. He likes his brushed with egg. For me, it doesn't matter, but I'll brush these with egg. All right. There. Now I'm gonna get my tray, line that, and get these in the oven. Oh my goodness, just look at these. They look so good. I can't wait to try it. Nice and golden. Next time you make chicken stew, use the leftovers and make a pot pie. Breakfast this morning on Thursday, February 3rd, a pumpkin muffin. Mine kind of fell apart. I didn't dip into it yet. It just kind of broke when I put it in the bowl. And I've got some apple cinnamon tea and a glass of water. And Joe has a muffin and some coffee. We're just fixing our dinner and we're having chop suey. Joe is going to make that. But Riley and I are going to make garlic butter to have with our toast. We're going to make our own garlic toast. So she's going to help me. I'm going to focus the camera down here on what she's doing, and you're going to help. Riley loves to cook. So she's my big help. So I'm going to focus on this so you guys can see what we're doing. Okay, Ry. You show us what we need to do.
So first you need to click that.
Okay.
Because it'll make it easier for the peeling on the garlic to come off. And then I put it in here.
It's hard to see. Let's put it right over here so we can see. There you go. Okay, I'm gonna put it in the garlic press.
Squeeze it.
That's kind of hard to use. Okay. All right, you go ahead and you squeeze. Get it?
I can't. Ooh, it's juicy. Yeah.
Okay.
And then this.
Good job. Good job. Now we're just going to open it back up and see how that kind of fell to the side a little bit. We can close it and squeeze it again, get a little bit more out of it, I think. There you go. Hold it away from the bowl. Okay. All right. Whoops.
Good on my finger.
There we go. It's coming out a little bit more.
It smells weird.
Okay. It smells delicious. Okay. Now let's break up that next one. We're going to do the same thing.
So I just...
All right. So we have some softened butter. This just happens to be salted butter, but you can use whatever butter works for you. So just mix that right around. So we're going to let this sit and
I don't want to touch it.
just
I don't
get
like
the
touching butter.
we're just going to let it sit so that it can absorb all of that garlic flavor. And when we put it on our toast, on our bread to toast, it's going to be delicious because it's going to have a really nice strong garlic flavor to it. Right? Tonight we're having chop suey. Joe is making. He makes a really good chop suey. These are peppers that we froze. And he also has some, probably a medium-sized onion chopped up. And do you fry that in with the
meat?
Yeah, I'll fry the meat up quite a bit, and then I'll throw these in when the meat's not quite done.
And for meat, we have some sausage from the pigs we helped our son raise last year. And we have some fresh beef that from the cows that we helped our son raise. We also have a couple jars of stewed tomatoes, canned tomatoes. These have peppers, onions, different spices in them to use for the chop suey. And he also uses tomato soup. I don't know if you do your recipe this way or not, but this is how he always does his. I never had it this way until I married him, but I do know it is delicious. For seasonings, he has some garlic powder, onion powder, and some Italian seasoning. Those are the main ones. He'll probably add some salt and pepper as well. And we're going to have some green beans. Typically we would have a green salad with this, but we don't have any fresh greens. This is a pantry challenge, so we are not spending any money on anything. So that includes, if we're out of anything fresh, then we stay out of it until the end of the pantry challenge. The peelings that Joe, and the leftover onion parts from the onion that he chopped, I take all of this and I keep a bag in our freezer filled with the peelings from the onions, carrots, garlic. The garlic that I did, the peel went in here. All of that goes in here, and we will use that to make some broth. There's something else that I'm thinking I might do with it as well, but I'm going to test it out first before I actually share it with you. He's got the onions chopped up, the peppers chopped up, and then he found some pepperoni that was in the freezer. We pulled it out because it has been in there for too long. He chopped off some freezer burn parts, and we're going to use what's left that is good and put this in the chop suey as well. Just a little bit of additional flavor. Joe just added the fresh hamburger to the hot cast iron pan, and now he's adding the sausage. Is this just like an Italian sausage or a breakfast? It's not a breakfast sausage.
Sweet Italian sausage.
Sweet Italian.
Pork sausage.
There's no real amount that he's adding here. It's just kind of guesstimate. I mean, it really depends on how much you're making. We always say we're not making a big one, but then it always turns out to be a big one, and we end up throwing, some of it into the freezer to have for later, or sending it to our kids' houses, just, for them to have. It'll get eaten, it never gets wasted. I'm going to open up some green beans and, let's get this backwards. Add those to a pot and get this heating up. Alright, now I went ahead and drained that meat. You can see I got drained off whatever fat was on there. And now he's adding the onions, and he'll add the peppers and the pepperoni in there as well. You just want to cook those up. You just don't want them crunchy.
I know we have onions and peppers in here, but I'm going to add a little onion powder, garlic powder. Don't be shy on the onion and garlic powder. And I'm going to add some Italian seasoning. We'll add some more of this after we put our tomatoes and tomato soup in. You could add mushrooms to this. We get some people in our family that don't like mushrooms. Her and I do, but our granddaughter doesn't. Her father doesn't, so we don't know if we're going to be giving some of this to them. But anyway, we'll hold off on the mushrooms this time.
Here is the garlic. I'm just going to toss that in. This is 2 cloves of garlic, just roughly chopped. This smells like a sub, like an Italian sub. You know when you go into a sandwich place, like a Italian sandwich place? That's what I smell. Or like a pizza place. This smells so good.
Some pink Himalayan sea salt and black pepper. Okay, we're going to add a can of our tomatoes, jar of our tomatoes from our garden. These are stewed tomatoes. And a couple cans of tomato soup.
There's a spoon back there. Where'd you learn to do tomato soup?
A guy that I used to work with said to try it. He uses it in his chop suey, and I tried it and I've liked it ever since.
That's what he used to do at work. They, in their downtime, they would all sit around and talk recipes. A lot of the guys in his office love to cook, which is, I think is so great. So you need another can of tomato soup.
We're gonna put some of it in. I don't know for sure how much.
Get a bird's eye view here. Earlier today, there were some turkeys at the top of our driveway. They had marched up the road from my sister's place. She lives about a quarter of a mile down the road, and they've been nesting in her trees in her yard. And they came up to visit, I guess, and get some apples out of the orchard, what's left on the trees.
We're gonna put in the balance here of what's left in the can. I'm gonna give you one of my secrets to my sauce here. Maybe you might do it yourself, but I always, when I make chop suey or chili, I always add in a little brown sugar, and it just gives it a little hint of a sweet taste, and it helps to kill the acid some.
Just balancing everything out.
This is a pretty good sized pan of sauce here, so
About a 10-inch cast iron pan. Is this to taste? Like when you put it in, is it just
gives it a little sweet taste, and it helps to kill the acid. Some people.
But do you like the amount that you put in? Are you putting it in just to taste,
right.
or
Yes.
or do you have a specific amount?
No.
He's poured the sauce into the macaroni and just kind of stirred it around, and you can see there is leftover sauce. So what we'll do is let that cool. We will put it in a Ziploc and label it, date it, and throw it in the freezer. And as for me, I'm heating up our cast iron skillet. Just gonna get this buttered up really nicely with the garlic butter that Rye made. Cook those. I'm gonna butter this side as well and just pan fry them till they're nice and crispy. Here's the finished dinner. We have our garlic toast and I pan fried it on both sides. There's some green beans, some chop suey, and I have a cup of, believe it or not, banana nut tea. Probably doesn't go well with this, but I'm running low on tea. And some water. And Joe is having, is it coffee or tea?
Red rose tea.
Red rose tea. And we have Rye. And she's going to stay with us for a few days. She's got her dinner. She's already dived right in.
Good.
Is it good? Mm-hmm. Papa make a good chop suey?
Mm-hmm.
Breakfast on February 4, it's a Friday. We have some blueberry sourdough waffles, some fresh bacon, and applesauce. And I have tea, Joe has coffee, and Riley also has waffles, bacon. She has apple slices with hers and some water.
For dinner tonight, I made some homemade hamburger buns. These are potato buns, so they're made with mashed potatoes. We are going to have these with some ground beef. This is fresh ground beef that we are going to turn into sloppy joes. We're just using a can of manwich that we had underneath of the counter. Just something quick and easy, and more pie bites because the first ones were delicious. These tasted amazing. I love the hamburger buns. I think they're a definite keeper for a recipe, and yeah, definitely be making these again. Everything was delicious. Saturday morning breakfast is breakfast sandwich. Homemade sourdough English muffins, eggs, and bacon, and of course, tea, coffee, and water.
It's Saturday night, February 5th. Joe has decided he wants to make meatloaf. So he's just putting together the topping. It's, what is it, ketchup and sugar and anything else?
Onion, garlic powder, and a little salt and pepper. I'm going to mix some of this with the hamburger also.
So part of that's going to be the topping and part of it's going to be in with the mix of hamburger. So he's doing this the same way he did the last meatloaf that we did, except for the last meatloaf I believe was moose meat. So this one is going to be regular beef, made pretty much the same way with a twist. So we are doing onions, same, doing the mix, ketchup mixture to put in with it, the beef, breadcrumbs. What else goes inside in that?
An egg or two.
No, he's just layering some Swiss cheese. This is a free-form meatloaf. Now the other half of this is going to go on the top so that your cheese is going to be right in the center. I'm just going to join those together. Over the top, more sauce. I would like to know if anyone else has ever tried doing their meatloaf this way, or maybe you have another cool idea. He isn't quite finished yet. There's more to come, but
Meatloaf is one of those dishes that he likes to experiment, add to, play around with. Now for the crowning feature.
This isn't going to be fancy, but
I used to put just like strips of uncooked bacon over the top, but it didn't crisp up very well. So he's going to try it this way, which it's cooked, but it's not completely all the way as far as he would like it to be cooked. So it's okay to go on the top of this and cook some more.
that's probably good enough.
It's looking kind of like a hedgehog. That's what I'm thinking.
It's going to be a good hedgehog.
It'll taste good. Just gonna give it some flavor. It'll be good. So he's gonna put this in the oven for a while. I'm gonna say 45 minutes anyway. And I'll let you see it when we pull it out.
So what do you think of the meatloaf? I'm telling you, my husband, I am so blessed because he is such a fantastic cook. Now, I'm going to, while this meatloaf is in the oven, I'm going to make some dessert. So let me show you what I'm making.
All right, so we are making a galette. A galette is a fancy French name for a flat pie, I guess is what you'd call it. We have a mixture of some pears and apples. Just peeled, sliced them up. And I am loosely going to add some sugar to this. I'm not measuring anything. I'm going to add a little bit of cinnamon, a dash of nutmeg. Too much nutmeg isn't good, but a little bit is. Mix that all up really well. Pears and apples are a lot alike. Their texture is a lot the same, so they will work really well together. Okay, to this mixture, I am also going to add some cranberries. So, you know, because why not? I think it's colorful, I like it, and I think they will taste really well together. All right, I made a pie crust earlier, and what I'm going to do is I just rolled this out flat, and it's sitting on parchment in a round pan. I'm going to pour everything into the center. Get all my apples in. And let's move this out of the way. And what I'm going to do is kind of push this to the center a little bit. I don't want it to go out too far to the outside edges because I'm going to fold those edges up over. Joe, would you mind scrambling me up an egg so that I can brush this, baste it a little bit? Okay, so you see how I'm doing this? I don't know if you can see this. How I'm adding this pie, or folding this over. I'm just kind of pleating it, I guess you would say, as I go. It just makes for a really nice look when you're doing it. Very rustic, and I love that. Move this over, make it a little more even. Okay, there we go. Now, dress these up a little bit more. Now what I'm going to do is brush the outside of this with some egg wash. This is just a really quick, easy pie to make. That's, you know, for me, it's just a way of making a pie without going into the detail of rolling it out and putting it into a pie sheet and then doing the upper crust and, you know, all of that. It's just simple. It's kind of a lazy man's pie. I like it. I like the rustic look of it. I actually prefer this over a pie. And I love that you can see it. So it's visually pleasing as well. So I'm going to brush this
with the egg wash. This is just 1 egg scrambled. Brush it all over this crust. Babe, would you mind getting me some turbinado on the shelf in the pantry? Okay. I'm going to be fairly generous about putting this on here because we want this to be a really nicely golden crust. I mean, it's going to look so good when it comes out of the oven. It's going to be such a nice, tasty dessert. Fun, easy to do. Easy to do. This would be great if you're teaching your child how to make pie. This is the perfect thing. This is the perfect way to do it. You can use whatever filling you want to use. I've used strawberries before with chocolate mint. That's really good. All right. And I'm going to dust this crust with turbinado sugar. I always like to do this. You know, the other day I did this in one of last week's desserts with the little pie bites that I made. So I do like to do this on pie crust. I think
a little on the center.
A little on the center. You want some in the center? Okay, we can put some in the center. There we go. I like the glisten that it gives the crust. It makes just like a really pretty crust. Okay, so close up. We're going to toss it into the oven, not literally, but we're going to bake this. And when it comes out, oh my gosh, if you were only here to partake, but you know how that goes. This is the hedgehog out of the oven. You can see the cheese kind of melting out of the center. Some more right there. And the bacon is nice and crispy. And the final plating, we have meatloaf, squash, there's some sauerkraut on the side. And Joe has a potato and it's a baked russet. And we're both eating the peel to the potato, but I'm not eating any of the potato. Look at this beautiful galette. You can see the juices just bubbling in there. The cranberries, they're nice and plump. It smells delicious. That crust is a golden brown. It's a bit too warm to bite into, to cut into. We just pulled it out of the oven, so it's gonna have to sit for 15 or 20 minutes anyway before we can cut into it. All right, we're sitting here with our cup of sleepy time tea and galette. You can see I've got my tea and my galette. All right, Mr. Tweety, how about you have a bite? You can tell us how it is.
Very good.
Sweet enough?
Just right.
Well, that's the end of week 5, and we're on to week 6. I hope you enjoyed this week's menu. I know I enjoyed it, and it was a little bit long, but I kind of had maybe more dessert, maybe longer recipes, I'm not sure, but I hope you enjoyed it just the same. If you're new, I'd love to have you join my family of keepers, as I said before. I create 2 new videos every week on simple living, homestead grown, and all things home. And until next time.